So what I would tend to understand by that, as I've seen it used by other people, is bits of the Scottish or the English far right trying to learn the lessons of loyalist paramilitaries and how to act more like loyalist paramilitaries.
As in, like, be more effective because of them and, intimidate more people and do more harm and recruit.
Exactly,
yeah, I mean, to me, that just seems a little bit like wishful thinking. Like, in the same way that these posts, the AI posts that they put out with these 26 locations, and this whole focus on, like, unite the clans, like this spontaneous eruption of violence just was like Catholics and Protestants are united in racism. Like, isn't that great? It doesn't hold true. It doesn't reflect what is actually happening here. But I think you're right in that it is a very useful radicalizing tool because it shows you what is possible in terms of, mobilizing communities against each other effectively, like mobilizing communities to do harm to each other. So I think the impact of Ulster or Northern Ireland on the UK far right is very low. I think the impact of the Ulster and British loyalism on the wider UK far right is very, very strong. We had the BNP founder, Jim Dawson. He's Scottish, but he was here for a good while. We've had Jada Franson from Britain First living in North Belfast. We've had, all sorts of individuals are here. And
Sue Gray.
Pardon?
Sue Gray famously ran a pub for several years in a loyalist area in Northern Ireland for fun.
And there is a lot. I think the right in general and the far right in particular are better at networking than, the left. Like, they're fine to be in rooms with appalling people and learn tactics from them. And I think that there's also like a lot of, they do learn from a lot of kind of Christian and church groups in terms of like actual community activism. So like paramilitaries claim that they serve their community when actually they rule them. But there is a sense of protection that was kind of perhaps needed during the worst days of the Troubles, where people felt like, once you were home in your area, you were safe. And I think they're trying to kind of, emulate that again. Our areas are safe, but they're effectively intimidating non-white people off the streets and out of certain areas. And yeah, do I think that that's what the like wider far right are trying to do? Absolutely. Oh my God, are they going to call it the Ulsterization? That's.
I mean, there are some things you can't help notice the sort of broader UK far right's specific ambitions to copy sort of things that have been happening in Belfast. Specifically, you mentioned, that these loyalist areas are, yes, they're affordable, but they're also like festooned with Union flags and so on and so on. That you're living in the middle of a permanent BNP rally. And I mean, I'm just reminded of a couple of things from the last year or so, which is that all of the racist riots in London have been called Unite the Kingdom. And number two, Unite the Kingdom, Unite the Clans. Number two is Operation Raise the Colors. If you remember, the attempt to festoon every surface you could find with St. George's crosses, right? This is, hey, how can we make this village in, I don't know, Cheshire look more like it's in Belfast?
Gosh. I saw the other day that Jim Dawson from Knights Templar is advertising that you can get a free Union Jack from Belfast. All you have to do is send for postage. So I feel like there's some, loyalist shed probably on the outskirts of Belfast full of Union Jacks, just like posting them off.
Getting a great deal on flags from my flags guy. Yeah.
Yeah. The Vexillology warehouse, world's most flammable building, because it's full of polyester.
But that is also like an interesting way to obviously spread hate. But if money's been changing hands there, like that could also be an interesting way to do so in a kind of under the radar way. If all these flags that are, and I haven't been really in England since I moved back here like 3-4 years ago. is it as bad as people say? Like, do you go in? Like, I just feel since I've moved back here, there's just Union Jacks everywhere. And there were always Union Jacks in loyalist areas, but they're just everywhere now. And they've got bigger and bigger. They're like the size of bed sheets or windows. You know, everything, the culture has just got more and more like heightened. And the bonfires, like, you know, we do have to talk about the bonfires. There was those despicable images a few years ago of the refugee ship on top of a bonfire. And it was burned. Do you remember that? Like,
yeah, I do.
It was, you know, that type of image is kind of made for social media because then it can be shared all over the, well, you know, by US and UK and wider European networks of like, you know, again, look what's possible. But it is quite sad though as well because the people who are involved in the bonfire building, you know, kids are taken out of school to build these bonfires and you know, Protestant working class kids are doing really badly anyway. Protestant boys are doing particularly badly. You know, they have some of the lowest educational attainment outcomes in the whole of the UK. And I mean here, like, worse than people who neither of their parents speak English, you know, and they're being taken out of school to build these bonfires. And it's this whole big source of community pride. And that's why it's very difficult to unpick it. Because, you know, if your community is offering you hate, you know, you don't really, where else can you go? You know, like one of the bonfires last year was trying to get into the Guinness Book of Records for being like the biggest bonfire ever until Guinness decided that no, they didn't really want to be supporting this type of paramilitary activity.
I mean, fitting.
Just the way it feels like this is going is if we just cover the entire city in one big enough flag with a bonfire underneath, just hotbox the whole thing. You know? I just
yeah, the flags are everywhere, and then because in Belfast the Union flag isn't flown every single day over the city hall or anything, like that has enraged people. So that has kind of produced this right. Well, the flags will just be everywhere now. Like you cannot go on a journey across Belfast without seeing 300 Union flags. You know, is it that bad in England now?
If you're out of London, yeah, but they're England flags though, not Union
right,
flags.
Okay.
Even parts of like the London suburbs, like you sort of go, you like cross the road and it's just like, oh my, like there was one street, like, and I live on like in the suburbs of North London, which is not as bad as the suburbs of South London, but like, yeah, I was driving to like drop off some stuff and, you know, this one road like completely covered in like England flags. And I guess like, I don't know, like at the moment it's sort of weird because the World Cup is on and I'm wondering whether like, people are kind of using that as sort of an excuse.
Yeah, we need a sort of like strict division of like, did you get caught up in the like football or you have to use the like woke Nike flag from like the Euros, otherwise I'm not gonna know.
I've actually put mine up, but it says like on the corner, in brackets is football. Don't be mad at me.
Just like a central football in the middle of the St George's Cross. No, I mean it's slightly different for me because I live in Scotland, and you know, Scotland obviously has you know, more of the kind of sectarianism of Northern Ireland mapped on more directly. And it was interesting to see some of the links there. We also had like not on the same scale, but we also had some riots. We had some like demonstrations and stuff. And again, very much sort of like along those really concrete links of like, oh, well, Scotland and particularly Glasgow in the west of central Scotland is like the kind of overflow valve for like loyalist paramilitaries. You get into too much trouble in Belfast, you come to Glasgow, you come to Edinburgh. And so a lot of those people seem to have been involved. So I think it comes back to this thing of like, there are really like sort of concrete provable links here that you can make. And not just between different parts of the UK, but also internationally. You can think about this as like, I don't want to sort of like, surely there is a group chat, right? And just at some level, I just know that there is, and it's got to have the worst memes imaginable posted in there. And I dare not speculate as to who is in that group chat, but I'm sure that there is one.
If I'm to speculate, it's maybe that like a bunch of guys who did like, you know, basically like who basically broke knees in the 1980s and stuff are now having to be like, yeah, Rick and Morty's pretty funny, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Like, this is the real sort of point of divergence is if you were a kind of like serious Republican paramilitary back in the day, you're a playwright now. If you're a serious loyalist paramilitary back in the day, you are having to talk to the most annoying American in the world who sends you 50 cry laughing emojis.